What's up, trainers? Welcome back to PokePlayLab_DBSHQ, your home for elite Pokemon TCG strategy, competitive deck profiles, and master-level deck builds. Today, we're diving into a brand new master deck build featuring the powerful combination of Mega Excadrill EX and Mamoswine EX. This deck brings together massive damage, powerful synergy, disruptive plays, and incredible board control to keep your opponent under pressure from the very beginning of the game. Whether you're climbing the ranked ladder, preparing for your next league challenge, or simply looking for a unique competitive deck to add to your collection, this strategy has plenty of tricks that can catch your opponent off guard and turn the game in your favor. And if you're a fellow Pokemon TCG content creator, drop your YouTube channel in the comments. I'd love to check out your content, support your channel, and help grow this amazing Pokemon TCG community together. Also, don't forget to visit the community tab and vote in the latest image poll. And be sure to check out the announcements playlist for tournament news, raffles, giveaways, and everything happening here on the channel. If you'd like to support PokePlayLab_DBSHQ, you can also donate through the Cash App link on my YouTube page. Every bit of support goes directly toward helping me test new decks, create better deck guides, and bring you even more competitive Pokemon TCG content. Alright, trainers, enough talking. It's time to break down the deck, card by card, and see exactly what makes Mega Excadrill X and Mamoswine X such an interesting and potentially underrated combination in the current meta. So get your cards ready, pay attention to the combos, and let's see what this deck can really do. Stay sharp, stay awesome, and as always, keep playing. Next up, we have 4 copies of Drillbur, a basic fighting-type Pokemon with 70 HP and 2 attacks. First, we have Call for Family, which costs just 1 colorless energy. This attack lets you search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon and put them directly onto your bench before shuffling your deck. This is an extremely important setup attack for the deck because it allows us to quickly establish our board and get the Pokemon we need into play. Drillbur can help us find additional Drillbur, set up our Mamoswine X line, or get other important basic Pokemon onto the bench so we can start building our board for the following turns. Then we have Dig Claws, which requires 3 colorless energy and deals 50 damage. While 50 damage isn't the main reason we're playing Drillbur, it does give us an additional attack option if we need to put some damage on the opponent's active Pokemon. Overall, Drillbur's biggest role in this deck is its early game consistency. Being a basic Pokemon with access to Call for Family means we can use it to quickly develop our bench and establish the pieces we need to get Mega Excadrill X and Mamoswine X online. Drillbur has 70 HP, a 2x weakness to Grass-type Pokemon, and a retreat cost of 2 colorless energy. Next up, we have 3 copies of Excadrill X, the Stage 1 evolution of Drillbur. Excadrill EX is a fighting-type Pokemon with 270 HP and 2 powerful attacks that give this deck both pressure and board control. First, we have Piercing Drill, which costs just 2 fighting energy and deals 60 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. But that's not all. If one of your opponent's benched Pokemon already has any damage counters on it, this attack also deals 60 damage to that Pokemon. This attack is especially useful in this deck because it gives us a way to spread damage across the opponent's board. By putting damage counters on a benched Pokemon, we can start setting up future knockouts while still applying pressure to the active Pokemon. This can make it much harder for your opponent to safely develop their bench. Then we have Rock Tumble, which requires 3 fighting energy and hits for a massive 200 damage. What makes Rock Tumble even better is that the damage isn't affected by resistance, meaning your opponent can't simply rely on resistance to reduce the damage from this attack. When we need Excadrill X to take a big knockout, Rock Tumble gives us the raw damage we need. The combination of these 2 attacks makes Excadrill EX incredibly versatile. Piercing Drill helps us spread damage and control the board, while Rock Tumble gives us the power to finish off larger threats. Overall, Excadrill X is much more than just a heavy hitter. It's a versatile attacker that can pressure the active Pokemon, spread damage to the bench, and bypass resistance when we need to hit for big numbers. Excadrill EX has 270 HP, a 2x weakness to Grass-type Pokemon, and a retreat cost of 3 colorless energy. Next up, we have 3 copies of Mega Excadrill EX, the Mega Evolution of Excadrill and one of the main powerhouses of this deck. Mega Excadrill EX is a Metal-type Pokemon with an incredible 340 HP, giving it the durability to stay on the field and absorb a lot of damage while we build up our board. It has 2 attacks, and both serve a very different purpose. First, we have Undermine, which costs 2 metal energy and deals 90 damage. But the real strength of this attack comes from its effect after attacking. You discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. That might not sound like a huge amount of damage, but the deck disruption can become extremely valuable over the course of a game. Every time we use Undermine, we're not only damaging the active Pokémon, but we're also removing resources from our opponent's deck. This can help disrupt their setup, reduce the cards available to them later in the game, and potentially force them into situations where they have fewer resources to work with. Then we have the attack that really makes Mega Excadrill EX dangerous, Maximum Drilling. For 3 metal energy, Maximum Drilling starts at 200 damage. But if Mega Excadrill EX has at least 2 additional energy attached beyond the attack cost, it gets an incredible 130 extra damage, bringing the total to a massive 330 damage. And this is where our deck's energy acceleration and setup become extremely important. Instead of simply powering Mega Excadrill EX up for its basic attack, we want to build toward that 330 damage maximum drilling whenever possible. And Mega Excadrill EX works especially well with the rest of the deck because Drillbur gets our setup started, Excadrill X helps apply early pressure and spread damage, and then Mega Excadrill EX comes in as one of our biggest finishers. Overall, Mega Excadrill EX is the powerhouse that gives this deck its identity. We have Disruption with Undermine, incredible damage potential with Maximum Drilling, and 340 HP to keep this Pokémon in the fight. Mega Excadrill EX also has 2 times weakness to Fire-type Pokémon, 30 resistance to Grass-type Pokémon, and a retreat cost of 4 colorless energy, so retreating it manually can be expensive. Because of that, we want to be smart about when we commit Mega Excadrill X to the active spot. Next up, we have 4 copies of Swinub, a basic fighting-type Pokémon with 70 HP and 2 attacks. First, we have Call for Family, which costs just 1 colorless energy. This attack allows us to search our deck for up to 2 basic Pokémon and put them directly onto our bench before shuffling our deck. This is exactly what we want from Swinub in this deck because it gives us another reliable way to build our board and set up our evolution lines. We can use Call for Family to find additional Swinub, set up our Mamoswine X line, or grab other basic Pokémon we need to establish a strong board early in the game. Swinub also has Lunge Out, which costs just 1 fighting energy and deals 10 damage. While 10 damage isn't going to be our main source of damage, it's a useful attack if we need to put a little early pressure on the opponent or simply don't have access to our stronger attackers yet. Swinub has a 2 times weakness to Grass-type Pokémon, and a retreat cost of 2 colorless energy. Overall, Swinub's primary job in this deck isn't to be a major attacker, it's here to help us establish our board quickly and consistently. With Call for Family giving us access to multiple basic Pokémon, Swinub helps lay the foundation for our Mamoswine X strategy and keeps the deck moving toward its bigger plays. So even though Swinub looks simple, running 4 copies makes it an important consistency piece for the deck. Next up, we have 3 copies of Piloswine, the Stage 1 evolution of Swinub and an important part of our Mamoswine X evolution line. Piloswine is a fighting-type Pokémon with 100 HP and 2 attacks. First, we have Strength, which costs just 1 colorless energy and deals 20 damage. While the damage is fairly low, the low energy cost gives us an inexpensive attack option if we need to apply some early pressure while we're working toward our bigger Pokémon. Then we have Impaling Tusk, which requires 2 fighting energy and deals 50 damage. This gives Piloswine a little more offensive power if we need to attack before getting Mamoswine X into play. However, Piloswine's biggest value in this deck isn't its attacks. It's the evolution step that gets us 1 stage closer to Mamoswine EX. Since our strategy relies on building up our Mamoswine X line, having 3 copies of Piloswine gives us a reliable middle stage between Swinub and Mamoswine X. Once we establish Swinub on the bench, Piloswine allows us to continue developing that Pokémon into our stronger attacker. Piloswine has a 2 times weakness to Grass-type Pokémon, and a retreat cost of 3 colorless energy. Overall, Piloswine is primarily a setup and evolution piece rather than one of our main attackers. Its job is to help us consistently move from Swinub into Mamoswine X, while still giving us inexpensive attacks if we need to put some early pressure on our opponent. Next up, we have 3 copies of Mamoswine EX, the Stage 2 evolution of Piloswine and one of the key attackers in this deck. Mamoswine EX is a fighting-type Pokémon with a massive 340 HP, making it extremely durable and capable of staying in the fight while we build our board. It has 1 powerful ability and 1 attack, and both fit perfectly into our overall strategy. First, we have Mammoth Hauler. Once during your turn, this ability allows you to search your deck for any Pokémon, reveal it, and put it directly into your hand before shuffling your deck. This ability is incredibly useful because it gives us reliable access to whatever Pokémon we need at the moment. Whether we're looking for another Mamoswine EX, setting up Mega Excadrill EX, finding a missing evolution piece, or simply preparing our next play, Mammoth Holler helps keep the deck consistent. And because this ability searches for any Pokémon, we aren't limited to just basic Pokémon. That flexibility can be extremely valuable as the game progresses. Then we have Rumbling March, which costs just 2 fighting energy and starts at 180 damage. But here's where Mamoswine EX gets really dangerous. Rumbling March does 40 additional damage for every Stage 2 Pokémon on your bench. So the more we develop our bench with Stage 2 Pokémon, the harder Mamoswine EX hits. For example, with 2 Stage 2 Pokémon on the bench, Rumbling March jumps from 180 to 260 damage. With 3 Stage 2 Pokémon, we're hitting for 300 damage, and with a full bench of 4 Stage 2 Pokémon, the attack reaches an incredible 340 damage. This creates a really interesting strategy for the deck because building our bench isn't just about setting up our Pokémon, it's also directly increasing Mamoswine EX's damage output. And this is where Mammoth Holler becomes even more important. The ability helps us consistently find the Pokémon we need to build that Stage 2 heavy bench, while Rumbling March rewards us for successfully developing our board. Mamoswine EX has a 2x weakness to Grass-type Pokémon, and a retreat cost of 4 colorless energy, so we definitely want to be careful about paying that retreat cost manually. Overall, Mamoswine EX is both a consistent engine and a powerful attacker. Mammoth Holler helps us find the Pokémon we need, while Rumbling March gives us the potential to hit for massive damage with only 2 fighting energy. The key is to build our bench with Stage 2 Pokémon, because the more we develop our board, the harder Mamoswine EX hits. Next up, we have 2 copies of Cobalion EX, a basic Metal-type Pokémon with 210 HP, 1 ability, and 1 attack. First, we have Metal Road, and this is the main reason Cobalion EX fits so well into the deck. Once during your turn, when Cobalion EX moves from your bench to the active spot, you can move any amount of metal energy from your other Pokémon to Cobalion EX. This gives us a powerful way to concentrate our metal energy onto a single attacker. Instead of having energy spread across multiple Pokémon, Metal Road allows us to move those energy onto Cobalion EX when we need to attack. This can be especially useful when we're transitioning between attackers or when we need to turn the energy we've already built up on the bench into immediate offensive pressure. Then we have Power Tackle, which requires 2 metal energy and 1 colorless energy and deals a solid 200 damage. The drawback is that after using Power Tackle, Cobalion EX can't attack during our next turn. Because of that restriction, we don't necessarily want to rely on Cobalion EX as our only attacker. Instead, we can use it strategically, hit for 200 damage, then transition into another attacker while Cobalion EX sits on the bench. And this is where Cobalion EX works nicely with the overall deck. We have multiple attackers that can take advantage of our energy setup, so we can rotate between Pokémon instead of depending on a single attacker throughout the entire game. While its 2x weakness to Fire-type Pokémon, 30 resistance to Grass-type Pokémon, and 2 colorless energy retreat cost are worth keeping in mind when deciding when to bring Cobalion EX into the active spot. Overall, Cobalion EX is a flexible energy management attacker. Metal Road lets us move our metal energy exactly where we need it, while Power Tackle gives us a strong 200 damage attack for only 3 total energy. The key to using Cobalion EX effectively is knowing when to move it active, when to transfer your energy, and when to switch into another attacker after Power Tackle locks Cobalion EX out of attacking for a turn. Next up, we have 3 copies of Dawn, one of the deck's most important consistency supporters. Rather than disrupting your opponent, Dawn helps you build your board by searching for the exact evolution pieces you need. When you play Dawn, you search your deck for 1 basic Pokémon, 1 Stage 1 Pokémon, and 1 Stage 2 Pokémon, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Then, you shuffle your deck. Early in the game, Dawn helps you establish your board. Later in the game, it can search for replacement attackers after one of your Pokémon is knocked out, helping you maintain pressure without missing a beat. Consistency is one of the biggest factors in competitive Pokémon TCG, and Dawn greatly improves that consistency by giving you reliable access to your key Pokémon exactly when you need them. Instead of hoping to draw into the right evolution pieces, you simply search them out and keep your strategy moving forward. That's why we're playing 3 copies. It gives us a strong chance of finding Dawn early in the game without overcrowding the deck with too many supporters, making our setup faster, smoother, and much more reliable. Next up, we have 2 copies of Wally's Compassion, a powerful healing supporter that can completely change the outcome of a game when used at the right time. When you play Wally's Compassion, you heal all damage from one of your Mega Evolution Pokémon EX. That's right, all damage is removed, allowing a heavily damaged Mega Pokémon to return to full health. However, there's a trade-off. If you heal any damage this way, you must put all energy attached to that Pokémon back into your hand. At first glance, that drawback might seem significant, but in many situations it's actually worth it. If your Mega Excadrill has taken 250 or 300 damage and is about to be knocked out, fully healing it denies your opponent prize cards and forces them to start all over again. Although you'll need to reattach your energy, keeping your main attacker on the field is often much more valuable than losing it. This card works especially well with Mega Excadrill because of its incredible 340 HP. Your opponent usually has to invest multiple attacks to bring it close to a knockout. Wally's Compassion completely erases all of that progress, forcing them to spend even more turns trying to deal with the same Pokémon. That can completely shift the momentum of the game in your favor. The energy returning to your hand isn't always a downside either. Since the energy isn't discarded, you still have access to it and can begin reattaching it on future turns. In the right situation, that's a much better outcome than losing both your Pokémon and all of its attached energy. That's why we're playing 2 copies instead of 4. Wally's Compassion is a powerful situational card. You don't need it every game, but when your Mega Excadrill is on the verge of being knocked out, this supporter can completely reset the board and force your opponent to fight through another 340 HP all over again. Next up, we have 3 copies of Boss's Orders, one of the strongest and most important supporter cards in the Pokémon TCG. This card gives you complete control over your opponent's board by letting you switch one of your opponent's bench Pokémon into the active spot. The power of Boss's Orders is that it allows you to choose exactly what you want to attack. Instead of wasting damage on a bulky active Pokémon, you can target vulnerable Pokémon on the bench, such as low HP basics, support Pokémon, or an evolution your opponent is still trying to set up. Boss's Orders also lets you pick off damaged Pokémon before your opponent has a chance to heal them or retreat them to safety. Taking those easy prize cards can completely change the pace of the game and put your opponent under even more pressure. Boss's Orders lets you capitalize on that pressure by bringing up the exact Pokémon you want to knock out, preventing your opponent from hiding key attackers or support Pokémon on the bench. Whether you're taking your final prize cards, eliminating an important support Pokémon, or stopping your opponent from setting up their strategy, Boss's Orders is often the card that wins games. It gives you the flexibility to control the flow of the match instead of letting your opponent decide what you attack. That's why we're playing 3 copies. Seeing Boss's Orders consistently throughout the game gives you more opportunities to take key knockouts, disrupt your opponent's setup, and stay in control from start to finish. Next up, we have 4 copies of Energy Search, a simple but very important consistency card for the deck. Energy Search allows us to search our deck for a basic energy card, reveal it, and put it directly into our hand before shuffling our deck. While the effect may seem simple, this card is extremely useful because it gives us reliable access to the energy we need instead of having to depend entirely on drawing the right energy naturally. This is especially important in our deck because our attackers require specific energy to use their attacks. Energy Search helps us find the energy we need to set up our attackers, continue powering our board, and make sure we're ready for our bigger plays. It can also help us improve our consistency early in the game. If we're missing an energy attachment for the turn, Energy Search can give us access to the basic energy we need and keep our setup moving forward. And because we're running 4 copies, we have a much better chance of seeing this card when we need it. Overall, Energy Search is a simple consistency tool that helps keep the deck running smoothly. It may not be a flashy card, but having reliable access to our basic energy can make a huge difference when we're trying to get Mega Excadrill X, Mamoswine X, and our other attackers powered up and ready to go. Sometimes, the cards that look the simplest are the ones that help make the entire deck more consistent. Next up, we have 1 copy of Energy Recycler, a simple but very useful recovery card that helps us keep our energy resources available throughout the game. Energy Recycler allows us to shuffle up to 5 basic energy cards from our discard pile back into our deck. This becomes especially important in the later stages of the game, when we've already used several energy cards to power up our attackers or some of our Pokémon have been knocked out and their energy has ended up in the discard pile. Instead of running out of energy as the game goes on, Energy Recycler gives us a way to put up to 5 basic energy back into the deck, giving us access to those resources again. This works particularly well with our deck because our strategy relies on continuously powering up Pokémon like Mamoswine X and Mega Excadrill X. Once we've used a significant portion of our energy, Energy Recycler can help replenish our resources and keep our attackers online for the remainder of the game. Since we're only running 1 copy, we don't want to waste it early. Ideally, we want to save Energy Recycler for a point in the game where we've already used several basic energy, and getting those resources back will make a real difference. Overall, Energy Recycler is our insurance policy for the late game. It helps prevent us from running out of energy and gives us a second chance to reuse resources that have already been sent to the discard pile. It's a simple card, but when the game goes long, being able to recover up to 5 basic energy can be the difference between running out of gas and having enough resources to finish the game strong. Next up, we have 4 copies of Night Stretcher, one of the deck's best recovery cards. This item helps you get back important resources after your Pokémon have been knocked out or your energy has been discarded. When you play Night Stretcher, you choose either a Pokémon or a basic energy card from your discard pile and put it back into your hand. It's a simple effect, but it's incredibly valuable throughout the game. If one of your key attackers ends up in the discard pile, Night Stretcher lets you recover it so you can get it back into play. Because Night Stretcher is an item card, you can play it without using your supporter for the turn. That means you can recover an important Pokémon or energy. This card gives the deck excellent late-game consistency. Instead of running out of attackers or energy, Night Stretcher allows you to recycle your most important resources and stay in the game even after your opponent scores a knockout. That's why we're playing 4 copies. It provides reliable recovery throughout the match, helps you maintain constant pressure, and ensures you're never out of threats as the game goes on. Next up, we have 4 copies of Poképad, a consistency item card that helps you find your non-rule box Pokémon and keeps your setup as smooth as possible. When you play Poképad, you search your deck for a Pokémon that doesn't have a rule box, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. A rule box is found on powerful Pokémon like Pokémon X, Pokémon V, and other special Pokémon. Since those cards have rule boxes, Poképad can't search for them. Instead, it's used to find the supporting Pokémon that make your deck function. Whether you're missing your opening basic Pokémon or looking for the next evolution in your line, Poképad gives you direct access without having to rely on your next draw. Next up, we have 3 copies of Tremendous Bomb, a Pokémon tool card that can turn one of your opponent's big attacks into a huge punishment. Here's how it works. If the Pokémon this card is attached to isn't a Mega Evolution Pokémon X, is in the active spot, and takes 240 or more damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokémon X, Tremendous Bomb activates. Even if your Pokémon is knocked out by that attack, you place 12 damage counters on the attacking Pokémon. That means Tremendous Bomb can put an incredible 120 damage directly onto the Pokémon that just attacked you. And if you place any damage counters on the attacking Pokémon this way, Tremendous Bomb is then discarded. This card fits the deck extremely well because we have several Pokémon that can act as strong targets for this effect. Our opponent may eventually need to hit one of our big Pokémon for a massive amount of damage to take a knockout, and that's exactly when Tremendous Bomb can punish them. The important part is that the Pokémon carrying Tremendous Bomb does not have to survive. Even if your Pokémon gets knocked out, the effect still activates and places those 12 damage counters on the attacking Pokémon. This creates a difficult decision for our opponent. They might be able to take the knockout, but if they do, they're potentially taking 120 damage in return. And that damage can be extremely important because it can put the opposing Pokémon within knockout range of one of our other attackers on the following turn. However, there's one very important detail to remember. Tremendous Bomb only works when the Pokémon taking the hit is not a Mega Evolution Pokémon X, so we need to attach it strategically to the right Pokémon rather than automatically putting it on our Mega Excadrill X. Overall, Tremendous Bomb is a fantastic punishment card that turns our opponent's biggest attacks into a potential liability. We're basically telling our opponent, you can take the knockout, but you're going to pay for it. That kind of pressure can force your opponent to think twice before committing their strongest attack, which makes Tremendous Bomb a valuable defensive tool in this deck. Next up, we have 4 copies of Magnetic Metal Energy, a special energy card that provides metal energy as long as it's attached to a Pokémon. But the real reason this card is so valuable in our deck is its second effect. As long as Magnetic Metal Energy is attached to a Metal-type Pokémon, that Pokémon has no retreat cost. This is a huge advantage because several of our Metal Pokémon normally have expensive retreat costs. Mega Excadrill X, for example, has a retreat cost of 4, which can be extremely expensive to pay manually. With Magnetic Metal Energy attached, we can completely eliminate that cost and give our Metal Pokémon the ability to retreat for free. That gives us much more flexibility during the game. We can move a Metal Pokémon into the active spot when we want to attack, and then retreat it without having to discard energy or spend valuable resources. This also works extremely well with Cobalion X. Because Cobalion X has the Metal Road ability, we can move it from the bench to the active spot and transfer our metal energy onto it. Having magnetic metal energy attached means we can then retreat that Pokémon for free when we need to switch into another attacker. So magnetic metal energy isn't just helping us meet our attack costs, it's also giving our metal Pokémon incredible mobility. And that's especially important in a deck with multiple attackers. We don't always want the same Pokémon sitting in the active spot, so being able to freely move between our attackers can make our turns much more efficient. Overall, magnetic metal energy is an extremely valuable energy card for this deck. It provides the metal energy we need while also removing the retreat cost from our metal-type Pokémon. With 4 copies, we're giving ourselves plenty of opportunities to take advantage of that free retreat effect and keep our metal attackers moving throughout the game. Energy, mobility, and flexibility, all from a single energy card. Next, we have the deck's basic energy lineup, 5 copies of basic metal energy and 5 copies of basic fighting energy. This 5 and 5 split is important because our deck is built around 2 different energy types, and we need consistent access to both throughout the game. Our fighting energy is primarily used to power up our fighting type attackers, including Mamoswine X and Excadrill X. Mamoswine X can use fighting energy to power up Rumbling March, while Excadrill X needs fighting energy for its attacks. Then we have our 5 basic metal energy, which are essential for our metal type Pokémon, especially Mega Excadrill X and Cobalion X. Mega Excadrill X relies on metal energy for both of its attacks, and having enough metal energy available is particularly important when we're trying to reach the additional energy requirement for that massive maximum drilling attack. The metal energy also works well with Cobalion X's Metal Road ability, giving us the energy resources we need to move onto Cobalion X when we want to use Power Tackle. And remember, we're also playing Energy Search, which gives us another way to find the basic energy we need, while Energy Recycler gives us a way to recover up to 5 basic energy from the discard pile later in the game. So while these 10 basic energy cards may look simple, they're the foundation that keeps all of our attackers powered up. Overall, the 5 metal and 5 fighting energy split gives the deck a balanced energy base, allowing us to support both halves of our strategy without relying too heavily on one energy type. With the right energy in play, we can transition between Mamoswine X, Excadrill X, Mega Excadrill X, and Cobalion X, keeping our attacks flowing and maintaining pressure throughout the game. And that brings us to the end of today's master deck build, featuring the powerful combination of Mega Excadrill X and Mamoswine X. This deck is about much more than simply dealing massive damage. We're building our board with Swinub and Drillbur, developing our evolution lines, using Mamoswine X to search for the Pokémon we need, and turning a developed bench into massive damage with Rumbling March. At the same time, Mega Excadrill X gives us incredible offensive power with maximum drilling, while Undermine adds another layer of disruption by removing cards from our opponent's deck. That combination of power, consistency, disruption, and strategy is what makes this deck so interesting. So, if you enjoyed this deck breakdown, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to PokePlayLab_DBSHQ, and leave a comment below. I want to know, what was your favorite combo in this deck? And what Pokémon TCG deck would you like to see me break down next? Don't forget to check out the community tab, vote in the latest polls, and keep an eye on the channel for more deck builds, giveaways, and competitive Pokémon TCG strategies. Until next time, stay ready, stay sharp, because a true trainer is always prepared for whatever comes next. And remember, decks don't win games, prepared trainers do. Keep playing.